Brace yourself for some harsh words. Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 savage celebrity roasts. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we'll be looking at the most brutal roasts and takedowns from British comedians.
Jeff is called the roast master because he works in a Starbucks.
Number 10, Jimmy Carr to Davina McCall. You don't become such a popular staple of British telly without learning how to take a punch, which was why presenting Queen Davina was one of only 4 iconic celebrities featured in the UK's first foray into roasting.
Davina says she loves Big Brother because she's incredibly nosy. I wouldn't say incredibly nosy, but it is big.
While there was no shortage of jokes about Davina's long tenure as the face of Big Brother, Jimmy Carr is, as always, quick to make things personal by bringing up her empire of fitness DVDs and her failed talk show.
No one wants to see her embarrassed and humiliated on television. That's why they cancelled her chat show.
He's even bold enough to make a joke about Anne Frank. While Jimmy is the host and not one of the featured roasters, he's easily the funniest and most brutal.
Davina traced her roots on Who Do You Think You Are? Apparently, Davina's descended from a stonemason and a policeman, and not, as most people thought, a foghorn and a crow.
Number 9, Joe Lycett to Nick Helm. The undisputed king of trolling, the comedian formerly known as Joe Lycett officially changed his name in early 2020 to make fun of fashion company Hugo Boss for being extremely litigious. But before that, he absolutely obliterated fellow comic Nick Helm on Roast Battle.
In the industry is known as a triple threat. In real life is known as a triple heart bypass waiting to happen, you fat prick!
It was clear he'd already won when he began with brutal jokes about Helm's weight and later his poor ticket sales.
I knew you'd go low, but not as low as your ticket sales, Nick.
Helm has to resort to actually complimenting Lycett to try and gain back some ground, claiming he went around and bought copies of Lycett's book to make sure he didn't feel bad if it sold poorly. Joe seals his victory by giving Helm a kiss.
I love you, Nick.
Number 8, Jack Whitehall at the Brit Awards. The host can make or break an award show in a given year, so choosing the right one is vital. Jack Whitehall was so good at the 2018 Brit Awards that he's been the host for subsequent years.
Remember, if you don't win a Brit Award tonight, you can always just buy one off eBay. There ain't no auction like an S-Club auction.
He doesn't just make fun of the musicians present, though there's definitely a lot of that, but also brings current events to add some edge to the material, including jokes about Prince Philip's car accidents and the nation's favourite punching bag, Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan didn't like that picture where you stripped off naked, which is weird, because, you know, voluptuous breasts and 4 chins, it must have been like looking in the mirror for him.
He even had to come on Good Morning Britain after the 2019 show to defend his more scathing takedowns.
Is it appropriate to fat shame me on national TV?
No, it's totally unacceptable. But I knew that you got a great sense of humour and you'd take it on your chins.
Number 7, Big Narstie versus Jimmy Carr. Nothing is off limits for these guys, and Carr's guest spot begins with numerous jokes about his long history of tax avoidance.
The difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance is about 18 months inside. I was on the right side of that.
He counters these with more quips about Narstie's weight, saying it's like sitting opposite Jabba the Hutt, while Narstie brings up the fact Jimmy didn't lose his virginity until he was 26, even showing some embarrassing photos of the comic when he was younger.
No,
Holy shit!
That's me at 17, I think.
You are a f***ing catfish.
But for every easy fat joke about Narstie not going to the gym and eating too many Haribos, there are even easier comments to make about Jimmy's trademark laugh and his shady financial history.
You need to say that again because that's the only exercise he's ever had.
Number 6, Stuart Lee on James Corden.
He's always going on in interviews about how brilliant he thinks I am, right? And the feeling is not reciprocated.
Though he's taken the US by storm and become a popular fixture on chat show scene, there are many people in the UK who have been glad to see the back of him, and Stuart Lee is one of them. He begins by saying he doesn't appreciate Corden constantly saying he's a fan of Lee's work in interviews, claiming it's all PR.
Britain's loss is America's loss also.
He's later been asked to expand upon his dislike for Corden, explaining he once had to avoid him during a show in London, so he didn't inadvertently ruin this bit for his routine by finding out Corden is a nice person beneath it all.
Imagine James Corden watching me. Like a dog listening to classical music.
Number 5. Ali G to the Beckhams. Before Sacha Baron Cohen became a household name for his many other characters, he was famous as Ali G. At the height of his popularity, but before the hapless celebrities he interviewed realised who he was able to do a skit on Comic Relief 2001 where he interviewed the Beckhams.
Beckham, what about you?
Alright.
Listen, just because this is Comic Relief doesn't mean you should speak in a silly voice, right? Don't play it to me.
He asks them all sorts of personal questions, including how many of the other Spice Girls turned Beckham down before he got to Posh.
So how many of the Spice Girls turned you down before you went for
As well as talking about their son Brooklyn, who'd only been born recently, he takes a few cheap shots at Sporty Spice and pokes fun at David's status as a sex symbol.
Just because you wear skirts, your girlfriend's pants, have a suntan and a skinhead, talk like a girl and hang out with Elton John, what's going on that?
Number 4. Jonathan Ross to Gordon Ramsay. The famously foul-mouthed chef can take as much as he can dish out, and opened himself up to ridicule when he went on Jonathan Ross to promote his new show, Gordon Ramsay on Cocaine. That title alone keeps the jokes flowing for a while.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not on it.
No.
I'm sort of in it.
But I felt a bit cheated when I tuned in.
But Gordon digs himself into a deeper hole later on when he talks about his refined palate and his amazing tongue.
No, I've got an amazing tongue.
He also pulls Gordon up on some of the most colourful linguistic outbursts of his tele-career, including calling someone a French pig, and pretends to scorn him by comparing their deprived backgrounds. No matter how famous Ramsay gets, he can't beat a comedian in a game of wits.
We have to move.
Do we?
I've got a show to shoot.
Tough. Those drug friends of yours can wait.
Number 3. Ian Hislop to Piers Morgan. He's been notorious for far longer than he's been sitting at the desk on Good Morning Britain, initially for running plenty of life-ruining, attention-grabbing exposés in his job as a tabloid editor.
You sort of got rather bollocked by Murdoch, didn't you?
Rather. I got severely bollocked, yeah.
In 1996, he was already making a bad enough name for himself that he got into a feud with Ian Hislop. Have I got news for you, mainstay and editor of satirical magazine Private Eye.
Do you two want to go have a fight?
Things quickly get intense in this episode, with Angus Dayton asking if they want to go outside and have a fight, and Piers trying to turn the audience against Ian. To this day, the pair hate each other, with Hislop even coming up with the nickname Piers Moron.
Don't try the popularity line with me, Hislop.
Why?
Anybody here like it? Do you like him? Anybody actually like it?
Number 2, Jimmy Carr to everyone. Despite it being a show all about him, Jimmy Carr didn't limit his jokes to Rob Lowe only, but took on all the other guests as well, going as far as to laugh about NFL players and domestic abuse, as well as the war in Afghanistan.
Rob served in Afghanistan before becoming a stand-up comic. Then the real bombing began.
He even tackles one topic anyone else would be slammed for, when he talks about Pete Davidson's dad dying during 9/11.
I'm appalled that people would come here and make jokes about the sacrifice Pete's heroic father made on 9/11. This is not the roast of Pete Davidson's father. That was in 2001.
It's a good thing Davidson has such a strong sense of humour himself. When he finally gets to Rob, Jimmy doesn't dial it back at all, bringing up his numerous sex scandals and implying that he's most famous for being friends with Charlie Sheen.
It's been an honour being here tonight. My friends back at home aren't going to believe me when I tell them I got to roast Charlie Sheen's brother's friend.
Number 1, Ricky Gervais to Mel Gibson. One of the most controversial comedians working today, Gervais is a natural at attracting attention. After being in trouble countless times for his particular brand of comedy, Gervais found himself having to introduce Mel Gibson, who he'd mocked a few years ago at an earlier Golden Globe ceremony.
Mel's forgotten all about it, apparently. That's what drinking does.
Gervais took care to remind us all about his past comments about Gibson's alcoholism and decided to take it a step further by way of an apology. He said he'd rather be in a hotel room with Gibson than with Bill Cosby.
I'd rather have a drink with him in his hotel room tonight than with Bill Cosby.
To his credit, Gibson took it on the chin and got on with the show.
I don't know, ask the guy that said it, it wasn't me.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.